Prime Minister, on a scale of 1 to 10, how gutted are you by the BMA's latest strike action vote?
Oh, very gutted.
Is that 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10. It's irresponsible at any time, particularly at the moment. It comes on the back of a very substantial pay increase in the last year or so. There's a deal that we've put on the table that could have been taken forward, and so I think it's irresponsible action by the BMA, and not for the first time.
Thank you.
Okay. Maybe irresponsible, and I agree with you on that, but it's not actually surprising, is it? I mean, you've pointed to the massive pay rise last year, for which there were no productivity improvements linked at all. The BMA could be accused, but, with some justification of...
Right. So picture this. The Labour Party, barely months into government, is already eyeing the exit strategy. Not from number 10, from Keir Starmer himself. And who's the surprise candidate leading the charge to replace him? None other than Ed Miliband. Yes, that Ed Miliband. The bacon sandwich bloke. The man who made eating breakfast look like an Olympic sport gone horribly wrong. The former leader who spectacularly crashed and burned in 2015. Apparently, his back, his beloved, and his Labour's best hope for survival. You couldn't write this script if you tried. Welcome to British politics, where the plot twists are more absurd than reality television, and the drama never stops. Quick favor, if you're loving this chaos as much as we are, smash that subscribe button. Over 94% of you haven't yet. It's free, takes 2 seconds, and honestly means everything to us. Cheers if you did. Now, back to the absolute carnage unfolding in Westminster. So here's what's happened. A YouGov poll commission for city advisors BlondeMoney has just dropped an absolute bombshell on Labour's doorstep. Party members, the very people who voted Starmer into leadership, are now saying they'd rather have Ed Miliband running the show. Let that sink in for a moment. Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, the man who became a walking meme after that infamous bacon sandwich photo, has emerged as the frontrunner to replace Keir Starmer. His approval rating among Labour members sits at a healthy 55%. Meanwhile, Starmer himself is underwater with a negative rating of 3%. That's not a typo. The sitting Prime Minister is less popular with his own party members than the man who led them to defeat nearly a decade ago. It's like preferring your ex who once set fire to your kitchen over your current partner who merely forgot your anniversary. Baffling doesn't even begin to cover it. But wait, there's more. Because this poll isn't just about popularity contests and who can look least awkward eating processed meat. 51% of Labour members believe the party will lose the next election if Starmer stays on as leader. More than half. That's not a fringe opinion from the cranky left-wing Twitter brigade. This is mainstream Labour membership saying their own Prime Minister is electoral poison. And get this, 58% of members say the government performance has been worse than they expected. Worse than expected. They voted for this bloke, campaigned for him, celebrated when he won that landslide, and now, barely months later, they're looking at what it's doing with the same expression you'd have watching someone microwave fish in the office kitchen. Disappointed, horrified, and desperately wanting it to end. Now, you might be wondering how we got here. How did Keir Starmer, the human embodiment of a corporate training video, go from crushing Rishi Sunak to being less popular than the man who lost to David Cameron? Well, the answer is spectacularly simple. He's been rubbish. The polls tell the entire horror story. Labour is now polling behind Reform UK. Yes, Nigel Farage's outfit. They are level pegging with the Conservatives, the party they absolutely demolished just months ago. And they are barely ahead of the Liberal Democrats and the Greens. The Liberal Democrats, the party whose entire political strategy involves looking vaguely concerned whilst holding a clipboard in a marginal constituency. Labour is neck and neck with them. If that doesn't scream crisis, I don't know what does. And here's where it gets properly spicy. The speculation about Starmer's replacement isn't just happening in dodgy WhatsApp groups over pints in Westminster pubs. This is mainstream, front page, everybody's talking about it territory. Remember when there were briefings against West Streeting last month? Those extraordinary, venomous briefings that clearly came from number 10, trying to kneecap the health secretary before he got too powerful? Yeah, that backfired spectacularly. Starmer had to apologize to Streeting, which in Westminster terms is basically admitting you completely lost control. And what did those briefings achieve? They made Streeting look stronger, more credible, and like a viable alternative. Masterclass in self-destruction. That, speaking of Streeting, is sitting pretty in second place in this poll with a 44% approval rating. Not bad for someone widely seen as being on the right of the party whilst the membership leans decidedly left. But here's a fascinating bit. Labour members told YouGov that the ability to beat Nigel Farage matters more to them than a candidate sharing their values. Read that again. Beating Farage is now more important than ideological purity. That's how desperate things have become. The left-wing membership of the Labour Party is willing to back a centrist or even right-leaning candidate if it means keeping Reform UK out of power. It's like watching vegans vote for a steakhouse because at least it's not serving roadkill. Principles, schminciples, just win, please. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, Ed Miliband's resurrection. How on earth has Red Ed gone from political punchline to potential savior? Well, apparently, time heals all wounds, and British political memory is shorter than a goldfish on holiday. Miliband led Labour from 2010 to 2015, a period most charitably described as challenging. He lost to David Cameron in 2015, giving the Tories an outright majority and paving the way for the Brexit referendum, Boris Johnson, and basically everything awful that followed. His resignation speech was dignified, his exit was permanent, and everyone assumed that was that. Career over. Time to write some memoirs and do the occasional university lecture circuit. Except, plot twist, he's back. And not just back, thriving. As Energy Secretary, he's actually been doing rather well. 64% of members say he's doing a good job in his role, the same percentage who say Streeting is performing well. His push-forward ambitious green energy policies positioned himself as competent and serious, and most importantly, he's kept his head down and avoided the chaos swirling around Starmer. Sometimes the best political strategy is simply not being the person everyone's currently furious with. Miliband has repeatedly denied wanting to return as leader, which in politician speak means absolutely nothing. They all say that right up until they announce their leadership campaign. But his positive approval rating of 55% is impossible to ignore. Labour members look at him and see someone who's learned from past mistakes, who's proven himself in government, and who might, just might, be able to turn this sinking ship around, or at least make the sinking look more organized. Meanwhile, the rest of the potential leadership field is a mixed bag of ambition, denial, and strategic positioning. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, hasn't ruled out a leadership bid and sits on 18% approval. Not terrible, not great. Lucid Powell, the newly appointed deputy leader, scores 31% respectable, but hardly setting the world on fire. And then there's Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, languishing on 13% despite being in one of the great offices of state. 13%. That's basement-level support. Her chaotic pre-budget period and those persistent questions about whether she told the truth on forecasts have clearly done her no favors. When your own party members trust you less than they trust a politician who once lost an election whilst eating a bacon sandwich, you know you've got problems. And speaking of drama, let's discuss the latest whispers coming out of Westminster tonight. Apparently, allies of West Streeting are urging Angela Rayner to sign up to a joint ticket and back him for the leadership. In return, she'd get a role back in cabinet. She was recently demoted, remember, and possibly even return as Deputy Prime Minister. It's a political equivalent of a Moja proposal. You scratch my back, I'll give you the corner office. Both sides are denying it, obviously. A spokesman for Streeting said it's nonsense, and a source close to Rayner insisted there's no pact. But in Westminster, where there's smoke, there's usually a raging inferno and at least 3 people with petrol cans claiming they were just standing nearby innocently. Here's what this all boils down to. Labour is in absolute disarray. They won a landslide election, took power with the biggest majority in years, and have somehow managed to become less popular than the party they defeated in record time. Starmer's personal ratings are in freefall. His own party members don't think he can win the next election. The polls are horrifying. Reform UK is surging. The Conservatives are recovering. And now Labour members are openly fantasizing about replacing their sitting Prime Minister with a man who failed spectacularly in the same job 9 years ago. The irony is almost poetic. Labour spent years in opposition, watching Conservatives tear themselves apart over Brexit, leadership challenges, and internal feuding. They told themselves they'd be different, they'd be united, they'd be competent. And now here they are, months into government, conducting polls about who should replace their leader, briefing against cabinet ministers, and desperately trying to work out how to stop Nigel Farage from becoming Prime Minister. It's genuinely impressive how quickly they've imploded. BlondeMoney founder Helen Thomas summed it up perfectly. This polling shows that Keir Starmer's plummeting personal ratings with all voters is similarly reflected in the views of Labour Party members. This is likely to prompt further speculation about Starmer's successor, and thus the direction the party and government chooses to take. Translation: Starmer's toast, everyone knows it, and the only question now is who replaces him and whether Labour can salvage anything before the next election. So what happens next? Does Starmer cling on, desperately hoping something, anything, turns his fortunes around? Does Miliband stage the most unlikely political comeback since Churchill returned in 1951? Does Streeting launch a leadership bid whilst cutting a deal with Rayner? Does someone else entirely emerge from the shadows? Who knows? This is British politics. The only certainty is chaos, drama, and decisions so baffling they'd make a reality show producer weep with joy. One thing's for certain, Labour members want change. They want it soon, and they are not particularly fussed about who delivers it as long as it's not Starmer. Whether that's fair or not is irrelevant. Politics is brutal, memory is short, and public patience is even shorter. Starmer's window to turn things around is rapidly closing. Ed Miliband, improbably, hilariously, absurdly, is waiting in the wings. And somewhere, in a drawer in Downing Street, there's probably a bacon sandwich just waiting to make its triumphant return to the national conversation. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be keeping our eyes glued to this absolute train wreck as it continues to unfold. Cheers!